This week's AP poll just told us who the voters trust heading into March. And one team's ranking completely changes the conversation. There's 3 teams at the top of the rankings that all deserve to be the number 1 team in the country, but only one team can actually have that spot. We do these videos every single Monday, we do previews during the week, and we're going to have a full bracket reveal on March Madness. If you like these types of videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and without further ado, let's get into the number 1 team in the country. For the second week in a row, we have the Duke Blue Devils at number 1, and this comes to no surprise. They dominated once again. They beat Notre Dame 100-56, and then they beat Virginia 77-51. Now, look, this isn't the same ACC as it's been in years past. Virginia's a very, very good team, and somehow they're still underrated. So a win against the number 11 Virginia Cavaliers, even though it's at Cameron Indoor, is still a big win this late in the season. Now, Isaiah Evans had 19 points. He started the game red hot from 3, and he kind of set the tone early. Now, Duke had a 20-point lead about 12 minutes into the game, and they never looked back. This game was not close, basically from wire to wire. So, Duke stays at number 1. In my opinion, this is deservedly so. I get the argument to have, maybe Arizona, maybe Michigan there, but Duke does have the head-to-head over Michigan. Now, does Duke have the best resume in the sport? You could argue, yeah. You could argue Arizona does. So, look, I think we have a top tier of teams in college basketball, and then there's a second tier, and that top tier is small. We'll get into that, but Duke at number 1 makes complete sense. They've looked like the best team in the country. They look like they have the highest floor in the country, and I said it in my top 5 video, my which 5 teams can actually win March Madness. If there's one team that you want to bet on to make the Final Four, I think Duke is your best bet because they have the highest floor. We saw it against Michigan. Even when they didn't play their best game, they still came out with the victory against one of the top teams in the country. So, Duke's at number 1, and now let's move on to number 2. At number 2, and I think a lot of their fans think they should be number 1, is the Arizona Wildcats. And I'm not going to argue with their fans if they think they should be 1 because I think they have the resume for it. And they have 2 losses on the year. At Allen Fieldhouse, one of the toughest places to play in the country, and then versus Texas Tech, with no Koa-Pete in the second half. Now, I said it last week, should you still win that game? Probably. But is it the worst loss to have on your resume? No. They beat Baylor. Was it a little closer than I think their fans thought it would be? Yeah, they won 87-80. Braden Burries had one of the best dunks of the year, and then he hit one of the clutchest shots he's hit all year. They then played Kansas on Saturday, the team they suffered their first loss to, and they won 84-61, led by who else? Braden Burries, who had 20 points, 12 rebounds, and 5 assists. He's emerging as one of the best shooting guards in the country, and he reminds me a lot of a guy that plays for the Phoenix Suns, if you want to put that comparison together yourself. So yeah, Arizona's the number 2 team in the country. They've looked like the best team in the country for 2.5 months now, and like I said, you could argue that Duke's the best team in the country. You could argue Michigan, and you could argue Arizona. I think that is the cream of the crop in college basketball. That's the number 1 tier of teams. Now, they finished the year home against Iowa State. That is tonight. They are favored by 8.5 points in that game. They should be fine. We all know Iowa State fans, they probably, are a little scared to go back to the McHale Center after Caleb Love's 3/4 court shot last year to tie the game. And then they play at Colorado. So I expect them to go 2-0. I expect them to do well in the Big 12 tournament. They've basically locked up the number 1 seed out west, and yeah, I think this could be the year that they return to the Final Four for the first time since 2001. With that being said, let's now move on to the number 3 team in the country. If you want the best March Madness coverage, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're going to have a full bracket reveal, previews, and recaps all tournament long. Hit that subscribe button and get back to the video. At number 3, we have the number 1 team in KenPom, the team with the best odds to win the national championship, the Michigan Wolverines. And this is why I said I wouldn't be mad at you if you think they're the number 1 team in the country or you think they should be the number 1 in the AP poll. Because in a lot of people's eyes, they are the best team in the country. And it's the metrics, it's voters, it's, odds makers in Vegas. People are in love with this team. And look, they beat Minnesota at home in a game that was probably a little closer than people thought it would be, kind of like Arizona at Baylor. But then they go to Illinois in a top 10 matchup, Merez Johnson homecoming, and they dominated. They won 84-70, but it didn't feel like the game was even that close. Like, the second half came, and they just put their foot down, and they, belt to ass. That's the best way to put it. Like, look, LJ Kaysen out the year, that is a big blow to this Michigan team. And look, it was kind of a luxury to have him as your backup point guard. He was probably the best backup point guard in the country. And now when Elliot Cadeau's out of the game, we're going to have to see. Maybe McKinney's going to bring up the ball. I think Yaxel Lendeborg's going to bring up the ball a bit. We'll have to see. They finished the year at Iowa and then home against Michigan State, which will be a lot of fun. We're going to preview that game, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, Michigan comes in at number 3. Like I said, if you think they're the number 1 team in the country, if you think they should be ranked 1, I'm not going to be mad at you. I see what you're saying. But when Duke has the head-to-head, the voters are going to give them the number 1 spot. So yeah, Michigan comes in at number 3, and now let's move on to number 4. At number 4, we have a team that I've been pretty harsh on this year, but in my 5 teams that can win March Madness video, I did include them, and that's the UConn Huskies. Now, have they always looked great this year? No. Did they make a statement last Wednesday night in stores? Yeah, they won 72-40 over St. John's. One of the best defensive performances I've seen. Was it a lot of St. John's missing a lot of shots? Yeah, but holding a team like St. John's to 40 points the whole game is, it's undeniable. So they did that. They had a little scare on Saturday against Seton Hall at home. They won 71-67. Alex Karaban, for his final home game, had 23 points. That was very cool to see. The all-time winningest Husky. He got his jersey in the Ring of Honor for UConn, so that was very cool. Look, UConn's number 4. They're probably going to be a 1 seed in March. I thought once they lost to Creighton, that wouldn't be the case. But the teams behind them, like Houston's been losing, Iowa State's been losing. So I think UConn's going to end up getting that 1 seed in the South. Obviously, we need to see the rest of the season play out. They need to win at Marquette. And then just don't lose early in the Big East tournament, and you'll probably be A-okay. So, like I said in that video, you can't count out Hurley. Caravan's been there. Silas Demery's a junior. Solo Ball Jr., Terrace Reed Sr. They have experience. They have continuity. Like Jalen Stewart's been there. Jaden Ross. So this team, they can make a run, okay? You can never count them out. They're the UConn Huskies. They've won all these championships for a reason. They won in 23. They won in 24. Dan Hurley, if you don't think he's the best coach in the country, you got to admit he's in the top 3. So UConn comes in at number 4, and now let's move on to number 5. At number 5, we have a team that I didn't think I'd be saying they're back in the top 5 this season after their rough starts of the year, but it's the Florida Gators, and they look like they're one of the best teams in the country. You could argue that they're in that first tier of teams with Michigan, Duke, and Arizona. They're number 4 in KenPom now. They have the 4th best odds to win it all. They look good, and we know their front court is, it's Thomas Hall, it's Alex Condon, Ruben Shinyulu, one of the most underrated players in the country. He will get drafted this year, I think higher than people think. But the guard play, like Xavier Lee is finding his stride. Boogie Flan, Urban Klavchar is, a great 3-point shooter. This team is very, very good. They won at Texas, which is a sneaky, underrated win. We've said it all season. It's hard to win in conference, and it's hard to win on the road in college basketball. They did both of those. And then they played Arkansas at the Swamp. They won 111-77, and that game was not close. It was a blowout within the first 12 minutes of the game. Florida looks the part. Todd Golden is, I said it in my other video, he's one of the best bright young minds in all of college basketball. And if you don't think this team is capable of winning it all, then you need to check. You got to rethink, because this team, they can go back to back. They're more than capable of doing it. Do I think they're going to? I don't know. We're going to have to see their draw in the tournament, whether they stay on the 2 line or maybe they can creep up to that 1 seed. So we'll see. Florida, I'm happy to see them back in the top 5. They're a very likable team. They, you can root for guys like Thomas Hall, like Ruben Shinyulu. So, yeah, I'm excited to see them in March. I'm excited to see if they can make that run that I think a lot of their fans think they're going to. So, yeah, Florida's at number 5, and now let's move on to number 6. At number 6, we have the Iowa State Cyclones, who dropped 2 spots in this week's ranking. They are still firmly on the 2 line, but there is some concern with them, right? Their big strength was at Hilton Coliseum. They seemed like they were basically unbeatable. They had one of the best home courts in the country, and then they drop a game to Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech is very good. Texas Tech also doesn't have JT Toppin. So you probably, as 10-point favorites, should win that game at home. Now, look, Texas Tech played very well, but you'd be flirting with the last 1 seed if you can get the job done there, go 2-0 on the week after your 75-59 win against Utah. Now, you play at Arizona tonight. That's going to be a tough game. We all know that. If you can somehow sneak away with that game, you're flirting again with that last 1 seed. You then finish with Arizona State. You have to win that game. And, yeah, they can do well in the Big 12 tournament. Now, is it going to matter that much for their seeding in March? Probably not, because the committee doesn't care that much about the conference tournaments, which I kind of disagree with, but that's a conversation for another day. This Iowa State team still has everything right in front of them. I just worry about them in March winning 6 straight games away from Hilton Coliseum. So we'll see how they finish the year. I'm not really worried about them. They just haven't been super consistent, but they've shown that they can compete with the best teams in the country. So Iowa State comes in at 6, and now let's move on to number 7. At number 7, we have the Houston Cougars, who I have been just in love with all year. Now, as of recent, they had their 3-game skid. I said in my comment section the other day that this might be the best 3-game losing streak of all time. You lose at Iowa State, you lose to Arizona, and then you lose at Allen Fieldhouse versus Kansas. So it's not like, the sky's falling for the Houston Cougars. Are there some worries? Definitely. Now, it's pretty glaring at this point that they are missing Juwan Roberts very badly. They don't really have that interior presence on offense that they've had in years past. Now, can Chris Senack be that guy in March? We'll see. JoJo Tugler, is he a great, great defender? Yeah, but he's not Juwan Roberts, and he's not really close to it on the offensive end. And I'm saying that while also saying he is one of the best defenders in the sport. Now, they're going to need more out of him. They're going to need more out of Senack. You know what you're going to get out of Kingston Flemings, Emmanuel Sharp, Milo Zuzan. Kelvin Sampson's still the coach, one of the greatest coaches college basketball has ever seen. So Houston can still make a run in March. I'm not going to say they can't, but do I trust them as much as I did earlier in the year? No. They come in at number 7. Obviously, we mentioned their 3-game losing streak. They then got back on track. They beat Colorado by 40. That game was not close from start to finish. They finished the year versus Baylor and at Oklahoma State. You have to win both of those games. Secure that number 2 seed in the South region, where you'll be playing the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 in Houston. So everything's still right in front of them for Kelvin Sampson's squad. You just want to see them finish the year strong. So Houston comes in at number 7, and let's move on to number 8. Coming in at number 8, we have one of the hottest teams in the country in the Michigan State Spartans, and they're only on a 4-game winning streak, but they looked the part, right? They killed UCLA, they then beat Ohio State, they then go to Mackey Arena, which is Purdue as good as they've been in years past? Is Mackey Arena as good as it's been in years past? No. Is that still one of the toughest places to play in the country? 100%. So going to Mackey Arena and then going to Assembly Hall. Now, what we said earlier, it's hard to win in conference, and it's hard to win on the road. Well, they did both of those in back-to-back games. This team is playing their way into a 2 seed, and look, if UConn falls apart, if Iowa State might lose a game, Michigan State can potentially play their way into that last 1 seed. They are 24-5. Like I said, the Big Ten tournament, the committee's not going to look at it much, so finish the year strong. If you beat Rutgers, and then you can somehow win at Michigan, I think Michigan State is deservingly the last number 1 seed. Will they be? I don't know. I don't know how the committee will value their wins, but that's just my opinion. So Michigan State, they come in at number 8. I'm very impressed. I did not think they'd be this good this year. Jeremy Fears looks like potentially the best point guard in the country. Obviously, we've talked about Jackson Kohler, one of the most improved players in the country. And then Jordan Scott, the freshman. He's been massive for them. Kurt Tang, big shot after big shot. This team is legit. I'm admitting I was wrong about them, and yeah, Michigan State comes in at number 8. Let's now move on to number 9. At number 9, we have still one of the best stories in college basketball this season, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And look, Nebraska, they didn't do anything sexy this past week. They beat Maryland. They won at USC. They won the games they were supposed to win, and that's all you can ask for when you're playing, the inferior teams in your conference. They beat Penn State earlier. They finished the year at UCLA versus Iowa. If you can win both of those games, you're flirting with that 2 seed again. You're probably firmly on the 3 line right now, but you can play your way into that 2 seed. Nebraska fans, I think this is the year you get your first March Madness victory, and I think you might get more than one. This team can make a run. They're good defensively. Obviously, they can shoot. Price Sanford's one of the best 3-point shooters in the country, if not the best. I'm still giving it to Milan Momcilovic, but Sanford's right up there. Sam Hoiberg, people think because he's the coach's son, he is just not that good. He can play. And then we all know, Rink Mast, Burke Buchtengel, they got guys. Braden Frager. Nebraska's legit. People don't want to give them credit. I'm giving them credit. This team's very, very good. I would not be surprised if they end up on the 2 line in March. They come in at number 9 in the AP poll. And now let's move on to the number 10 team in the country. Coming in at number 10, we have the JT Toppin-less Texas Tech Red Raiders, obviously led by the head of the snake in Christian Anderson. Now, Christian Anderson, everyone knows him now, but he is one of the best players in the country. He's playing his way into being a first-round pick. He's that good. I think a lot of people, including myself, were very, very worried about this team once Toppin went down. But look, they beat Cincinnati. That game was at home. They won 80-68, and a lot of people thought Cincinnati was going to win that game. Texas Tech got the job done. Then they went to Ames, Iowa, to the Hilton Coliseum, and they beat Iowa State 82-73. Now, I don't think that's a fluke. Do I trust them to win 6 straight games in the tournament? I don't think so. If they had Toppin, it'd be a totally different story. We've seen them beat Duke. They beat Houston. They won at Arizona. They're very good. Grant McClaskland is one of the best coaches in the country. It's undeniable. They finished the year versus TCU and then at BYU. If they can win both, they can another one. They could be a 3 seed. They could, who knows? They're very, very good even without Toppin, which I'll admit I did not think that would be the case. I thought they would kind of fall off a cliff, but Donovan Atwell, another one of the best 3-point shooters in the country. He's got the ultimate green light. So yeah, Texas Tech comes in at 10, and now we'll round out the AP poll top 10. That'll do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. We do these AP poll reactions every single Monday, and March Madness is right around the corner. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're currently on the road to 500 subscribers, and we're trying to get there by Selection Sunday. Leave a comment. Tell me what video you guys would want to see next, and I will see you guys next time. CBB today. Peace.